Hi friends, Mr. Jordy here for a daily read aloud. I apologize that Mr. Jordy's been wearing a hat the last few days, and I bet you're probably wondering, why does she wear that hat? Well, I'm wearing this hat because I'm in my space that I created for us so that we could have our virtual meetings, and it's in my basement, and in my basement there isn't any heat. So it's really cold down here sometimes. So even though I have a tiny little mini heater sitting next to me, it only warms my legs. So sometimes I need to have a hat on and a little jacket to feel warm. So that is why I might look a little different. All right, chapter 3, Trouble in the Town Square. Ranger didn't recognize this place. He didn't know where he was, but he knew how to find. He'd practiced with Luke and Dad over and over. They'd hold out an old shirt or hat and say, "Find that, find it, Ranger." First, Ranger would smell the thing. Sometimes it smelled like rain or dirt or other things, but it would always smell like a person too. Once Ranger knew that person's smell, he could find it anywhere, even if there were 1,000 other smells to sort through. Ranger could pick out the important one and follow it until he found the person. When he did, Luke would scratch Ranger's ears and say, "Good dog, good boy," and then they would go home. Home. Ranger sniffed the dusty air. Where was Luke? Maybe if he did his work, if he found the person, Luke would come and say, "Good job," and they could go home. Ranger trotted up to the woman to see what she wanted him to find. Her eyes were wet. Ranger nuzzled her hand, but she waved him away. "Go on, dog." She didn't offer him anything to smell. She just ran off, calling, "Amelia, Amelia." But then a boy came. He looked about as old as Luke, with longer hair, and he held something in his hand. Ranger sniffed at it. The boy held it out. It was a little cloth person, like the ones Sadie played with at home. The ones Luke liked to hide from her. "This is Amelia's doll," the boy sighed. Ranger sniffed the doll all over. He could smell smoke and dirt and another dog, but mostly he could smell person. Was it the person Ranger was supposed to find? He sniffed again. Then he looked up at the boy. "You smell her?" The boy looked at Ranger with frantic eyes. "I've got to find her." Find? Ranger could do that. He tipped his head and waited for the boy to put on his harness the way Dad and Luke did, but the boy just stood there. So Ranger sniffed the air and started walking. He paused and looked back at the boy, who was still standing in the same spot. Luke and Dad always followed him. Ranger barked. "What is it?" the boy asked. "You want me to come with you? Can you find her?" "Find." Ranger barked again. The boy ran to catch up, and together they weaved through the busy crowds. The street here wasn't hard and smooth like at home. It was loose and dusty under Ranger's paws. And the cars here didn't roar or zoom. They had bigger wheels. Huge, drooling animals tugged them along. "Amelia!" the boy shouted, but Ranger hadn't found her smell. "Maybe over here." The boy headed towards a noisy building with horses and men crowded outside. As they got closer, Ranger's nose filled with 1,000 scents. Horses, men, shaggy animal, bacon, chickens, smoke, and then that. Ranger stopped and sniffed. It was the Amelia smell. He ran in a circle, found where the scent was strongest and followed it. But the boy said, "Uh-oh," and stopped. Ranger pricked up his ears. Angry voices filled the air. Ahead of them, 2 sweaty men circled each other, shouting. One shoved the other so hard, he flew backward into one of the horses. It neighed and reared up. The other horses and mules fretted and stomped the dirt. The man who had fallen got up and ran at the other man. The crowd was getting thicker. Tense voices buzzed in the hot afternoon air. It made the fur on Ranger's neck prickle. The boy must have felt the trouble too. "Come on, dog," he whispered. "We better go. She's not here." But she was. The Amelia smell was getting stronger. Ranger kept going, into the thick of the crowd, without checking to see if the boy had followed. One of the angry men lunged at the other, and Ranger had to leap out of their way. But he kept going, kept smelling, and finally, there! A tiny girl stood in the center of the mob. She toddled close to one of the shaggy animals and reached up for its whip of a tail. Ranger barked. He looked for the boy and barked again. There was a shout, then a gasp from the crowd. Horses neighed, hoofs thundered, voices hollered, "Whoa!" And the square exploded into a swirling cloud of dust. Here's a picture. Okay. And that is the end of chapter 3. So, kind of a cliffhanger. I wonder what's going to happen. Tomorrow we will catch up with chapter 4, and that is going to be Wagon Train West. So they're going to be heading on their way. So I'm thinking that Ranger might have found Amelia. We'll have to see tomorrow. Have a great evening, friends. It was great seeing you guys today for our virtual meeting. Bye-bye.